And I guess one other question right before we get started. If you, can you maybe in one sentence, if you've used MCP, what's your experience with it? Like, are you just getting started? You've built something with it. You've used it in a project. It'd be cool to just get everyone's, we're gonna have people that have we're gonna have people that are all over the place as far as their experience with it. And I think a lot of people are just learning this stuff, right? A lot of this stuff is really new. It's changing every day. It's definitely not a set in stone standard yet either. So Blender MCP demo, used MCP and Cursor. I think that's a pretty common one, either Cursor or Claude Desktop. And then some people are just getting started with it. Supabase, use it with Klein.
Allô?
All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen and we will go ahead and get started here. So we got a lot of people on the call. That's good. Yeah, I don't know. Normally, for some reason, I think when you're joining there, people are not muted. I think I can make one quick second here. All right. And we will start sharing and we will kick this thing off. Thank you everyone for coming today. Hopefully you can all see my screen, see some slides. All right. Let's, we need to, let's go to the actual start and we will get started. So thank you for joining. We came with the goal today. The goal is to build a code agent with MCP and Mastra. We're going to learn a lot about MCP. We're going to talk about what MCP is, why it matters. Tyler is going to help us learn how we can actually use MCP with Mastra. So you'll get an idea of how this stuff actually works, how it's kind of built under the hood. And then we'll have some time at the end for questions. But feel free to ask questions along the way. We have other people on the Mastra team here that are going to be helping field some questions. And then, of course, we'll have time at the end where Tyler can answer some questions too. So who are we? So I'm Shane Thomas. I'm the Chief Product Officer and a founder of Mastra. I was previously at Gatsby and Netlify. I built a site called AudioFeed a few years back now, or a year and a half back now at this point, maybe a little longer. And I've been in open source for 15 years when I actually was doing a lot of Drupal stuff way back in the day. So I've been kind of in the open source world for a long time. And please follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn and we can connect. And also want to talk about the real star of the show, Tyler. He's a founding engineer at Mastra. He was also at Gatsby and Netlify with me, and he's kind of our resident memory and tools expert. And so connect with him on Twitter as well. He had a post yesterday that got a lot of attention just on the MCP doc server that we released with Mastra. So you could go check him out. But I'll go through this stuff really quickly, and I know you all want to just get into the code and start to see it, so we'll hand it off to Tyler soon. But I want to talk just a little bit high level of what is MCP. It's an open standard, and this was originally kind of brought forth by Anthropic. It's really for connecting LLMs to systems where your data lives. So it's almost like you can kind of think of it like a USB-C port for AI applications. It's like you have this AI, you have all these like third-party APIs, and how do we connect them in a more standardized way? And that's really the goal of MCP. So before MCP, you often had to kind of build your own connectors. You were basically writing the glue code between your AI application and maybe a bunch of third-party tools. And so MCP, the whole goal is to create a more unified, standardized way to kind of hook your models into your different systems. And so how does it actually work? Well, you have some kind of MCP client, which in this case could be, as some of you said in the chat, it could be Cursor, Windsurf, Klein, Claude Desktop. There's the MCP protocol, which is the standard, and then you have these different MCP servers, which could connect to, and it's kind of hard to see, but could connect to GitHub or Slack or some kind of local file system tools. And so it's really this kind of bridge between these potential like third-party tools or potential local tools and some kind of MCP client. So as far as real world application, there are companies that are using MCPs internally to connect their AI agents with internal systems. So it's a standardized way to connect in kind of internal tooling. There's, of course, all the dev platforms that are using MCP like Cursor, Windsurf, Klein, Claude Desktop to make it really easy to integrate in MCP with everything that you're trying to do locally. And then there's a growing set of connectors for different services, and we'll show some of those today, but Google Drive, Slack, GitHub, all kinds of different tools. It's really just that unified integration. It really allows for faster development, so you don't have to write all the glue code. You can kind of just pull an MCP. The promise is you can pull an MCP server off the shelf, and you don't have to write the code for how you connect to Google Drive's API, for instance. And it's a separation of concern. So you kind of like split your AI application and then your data and tool app integrations. So it's, allows you to kind of keep things a little cleaner, and you don't have this one big kind of monolithic application, but you can kind of have a nice clean separation of concerns between AI and your tools. We'll talk a little bit today about MCP registry options. MCP registries are kind of like NPM if you're familiar with the JavaScript world. It's really a package manager for MCP servers. And there's a lot of them that are trying to pop up. And, we'll talk a little bit, Anthropic has some ideas around this too, but there's Composio, Smithery, MCP, Graph, Open Tools, and, there's a number of others that we're probably missing. And so here's just a few screenshots. You can see, in that one from MCP Run on the bottom right's the one from Composio, and then of course there's others too. But it makes it easy for you to kind of grab these different MCP servers and then use them in your application. So let's talk a little bit about Mastra before I hand it over to Tyler. Mastra is an open source AI agent framework in TypeScript. And what's all included? You can build agents with tools, memory, tracing. You can build agents that have access to MCP servers, as we'll see today. We have state machine based workflows, so you can build human in the loop workflows with, we try to make it a very simple API. So it's easy to kind of construct these various complex workflows. We have an eval framework for tracking and measuring AI output. We have storage for RAG pipelines. We have a local development playground. It's really the goal around Mastra is we're opinionated, but we're flexible. So you can get further faster, but it doesn't lock you in. You can swap out pieces as your application gets more complex and your needs change and grow. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to be building with Mastra and MCP. Here's the quick highlight, and then I'll hand it over to Tyler. We'll talk about the Mastra Docs MCP. We'll talk about some MCP registries. We'll build a code agent. And we will talk about building your own MCP server, and then we'll have a discussion on where MCP is headed. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to you, Tyler.
Awesome. Thanks, Jane. Hey, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen here. Okay, so yeah, we're going to be building a coding agent, and that agent itself is going to be able to build Mastra agents. So there's going to be a bit of a progression for us to get there. We're going to actually start by scaffolding a new Mastra project, and we're going to install the MCP Docs server, which we just launched yesterday. Some of you might have seen it. I recorded a demo video, but I'm going to do a quick run through. But our coding agent is actually going to use that, and that'll make it able to build other agents. So let's jump into it. Okay. So just gonna head over to my terminal here. So if you just go to like the Mastra homepage, you can just click this to copy it. This is like the install script for scaffolding a new Mastra project. We'll call it Mastra project. And this shouldn't take too long here, but it does have to install all the dependencies and everything. Should be any moment now. Yep, there we go. Yeah, so just going to use some of the default options here. This doesn't matter too much. And this is the part that matters more. So Now we're going to be able to choose to install the Mastra MCP into Cursor or Windsurf. I'm going to choose Cursor because that's the one that I use. And let's open it up in Cursor. So, let's go to project. So we've got a Mastra project scaffolded here, and you can see there's this mcp.json. This is actually the Mastra docs MCP, and this is going to give Cursor the ability to understand what Mastra is and read the docs and so on. So let's just enable it. So I went to Cursor settings and then MCP servers, and I'm just going to click enable on it. This might take a little bit of time. It has to actually install the new docs server. This little yellow dot will turn green once it's installed. Sometimes you have to refresh it. And there we go. Okay, so now that we have that set up, what can we do with it? So we've got our Mastra project here. We've got an example weather agent. I'm just going to show you real quick like what we could do here. So I'm just going to tell it to add memory to this agent. So add memory. Yeah, just going to click plus here. Sometimes you actually have to start a new chat after you add an MCP server in Cursor. So just to be sure, I'm going to do that. Add memory to my agent. All right, so we can see it knows that it can check the docs, and it's actually doing that. So it's going to check the memory reference and the memory guides. So memory is going to allow our agent to be able to have a long-running conversation where it remembers all the previous messages that a user sends to it. So without that, it only remembers the current message that you send it. So not quite as useful as having memory. Okay, so it installed the memory package, Mastra memory, and now it's actually going to add it to this file for us. So you could do this without the Mastra MCP docs tool, but it would involve like, pasting documentation links into Cursor. So you would go to like the mastra.ai docs website, copy a link in and so on. This is just a lot more seamless. It can keep looking up more docs links as it needs to. If it runs into some problem, it can generally kind of fix it for you, which is cool. So yep, it added memory here. So we got a new memory class instance with some, default options. I'll just delete this because we don't need all of that. And I'm going to delete this file because I have a global environment variable for OpenAI. And let's see here. Let's just run it to make sure that it worked. So all right, cd into there. And we'll do pnpm run dev, which is the default dev script for starting Mastra. We'll open up the playground. We got our weather agent, and it has a chat history, which means that Cursor correctly added memory, which is kind of cool. So let's actually head back over to Cursor. So you could do other things too, like I just added memory, right? But we could also say, what are latest Mastra features I should know about? And it's going to read the Mastra blog. Checking the change log. And yeah, so we got some new enhancements to workflows, new voice features, new memory improvements. Agent network is an interesting one. That's a new one. Let's actually just get it to add an agent network. So let's see how well it does with that. This is a brand new like alpha feature, agent network that the team just is kind of iterating on right now. So we'll see. Okay, so it's going to create an agent network for the weather application. So it's going to add a second agent that can provide weather-related recommendations based on the data. Okay, so interesting. Never seen this in Cursor before. Sure, I'll pay 20 bucks for faster completions. All right, so what do we get? Weather agent is what we had already. Now we have a recommendation agent, and we have a weather network. So that looks good. Okay, it's realizing that it made a mistake here. See, it said like it added this routing model to this agent network, and it realizes that's wrong. So it's checking the documentation again, and it actually fixed it. So that's kind of cool. Just accept the file. And yeah, so I hope you can kind of get an idea of why this would be useful. So we're going to use this in the coding agent. We're going to then give that agent the ability to do what we just did in Cursor here. Yeah, so I guess it's just kind of talking about the agent network. It's cool. So let's move on now. So I'm gonna like in building up to this coding agent, the next thing I'm going to show you is how to use MCP with Mastra. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is let's see here. I'm going to talk about the using it with different registries. So Composio is a really good one. So I'm going to show Composio, MCP Run, and Smithery, but there's some other really great ones like there's Open Tools, there's Pulse MCP, Graphlit, and some other ones. But let's just take a look here. So I have a terminal UI that I built for this demo. So we can kind of see a demo of using each of these. So we'll have our coding agent for later. We've got Composio, MCP Run, and Smithery, like I was mentioning. So the code here that we're looking at, this is for Composio. And you know what? I'm going to really quickly just show you what Composio looks like. So when you go to their website, they have like an MCP section, mcp.composio.dev. And they have all these really great MCP servers that you can install. So for example, there's a Gmail one right here, right? So you would come in here, click this generate. I'm not going to click it because it's actually a private URL, but you would then copy that URL and use it for your MCP server. So I've already done that. You jump back over to the code, you can see I added it as an environment variable because as I mentioned, these are private URLs. It'll look something like what you see in this comment here. But just run it. So this terminal UI lists out all the available MCP servers that I have installed. So for Composio, I installed Google Sheets and Gmail. And let's just ask it a question here. So this is a bit risky, but based on my emails, what can you tell me about me? Please look at my most recent 5 emails to tell. Don't list the email contents and don't name any names. So risky. We'll see. Hopefully it doesn't say anything weird. What do we got here? Okay, based on your most 5 recent emails, here's what I can infer about you. Okay, professional engagement. Yeah. Event participation. We're doing that right now. Doing it live. Sort of. So yeah, the main thing here is it worked, right? We saw, it was using this tool and then it finished with a tool result and we can interact with it. So I already set up Composio here, but what would normally happen when you interact with the Composio MCP is it would need to authenticate with these services first. So Gmail or Google Sheets or whatever. And the agent actually gives you a URL and you open that in your browser and it will authenticate, go through an OAuth flow, and then the agent is just kind of good to go after that. So let's look at the code a little bit. So we have this MCP configuration class. What this does is it allows you to pass multiple MCP server configurations, right? So we were just looking at that. We added these two. You create your regular Mastra agent, and you actually just pass tools onto it, and your MCP configuration has a get tools method you can call. You just await that, and then the tools are wired up to your agent, and it should all work. And for the demo, I'm showing this with a terminal UI, but I'm just going to show you that we can also do this and look at it in the Mastra playground. So I think this will take a little bit of time to start up. And the reason is it's actually starting up 3 different registries. So starting up the Composio one, MCP Run, and the Smithery one. Should only take a few more seconds here. got an error. So I have something misconfigured probably. What do we got here? So creating a new WebSocket connection failed. Connecting to one of these servers. So one thing about MCP is it's quite new still, right? It just was launched at the end of last year. So the error messages actually aren't always the best right now. And that's something that we're iterating on. So for us to start, let me see here, do a little bit of quick debugging. So I will just remove a couple of these from my Mastra instance here. And we'll just start it up with the Composio one because we saw that that was working. Oh, interesting.
It was probably maybe it's the agent network code that was written.
Oh, yes. You know what? Let's see. Maybe you might be right. Let's see here. Oh, you know what? No, my bad. No, okay, it worked. The problem is that I have the playground open already, and I had it open on the weather agent page. So this was pinging my server. So my bad. So there is no weather agent. So that's the error we were seeing. So let me just restart this quick to show. So this is what it should look like. And now if I come in here, we see our Composio agent, and it has all the tools and everything. You can click on one, click to accident there, but you could click on any of these to kind of debug one. So check active connection, click on different tool calls and pass in arguments yourself. But we can see you can interact with these agents directly in Playground as well. So something we're working on adding right now is the ability to see tool calls and tool results in the Playground, but we haven't shipped that quite yet. That's probably coming next week. So for now, that's actually the reason I'm going to show this terminal UI. In the terminal UI, I can kind of log out the tool calls and tool results. It should make it easier to see what's happening. Okay, so let's take a look at another one. So we got MCP run. So MCP run is another registry here. I'll just quickly open it up in my browser. So similar to Composio, different platform, you have all these different MCP servers and you can just choose to use one, install it. So I've already installed a couple. Let's see here. So for this, I have the Perplexity and Sequential Thinking MCP servers installed. Similar to Composio, you would click this generate button right here in the top right corner, and you would get a URL. And if I head back over to the code, you could see that's what I put here. And again, that would be a private URL. So that's why I have it as an environment variable. But yeah, we've got our MCP run example going over here on the side. And you can see those two tools are connected. And I have a prompt here. This one might not actually work. We'll see. But I'm just asking it to plan a day trip or whatever, a vacation to Kyoto. So this is using GPT-4o, which is not a thinking reasoning model, but using the sequential thinking MCP server, it can kind of act like one. So that's what we'll see here. We see it calling, the Perplexity chat to search the web, but in between, we'll actually see this sequential thinking as well. So it's kind of iterating on the prompt that I gave it. It's doing the sequential thinking, making a step. From that step, it is making a web search, adding another thinking step, and so on, and kind of in a loop. I didn't spend too much time on this one, so I think it might run longer than we have, so I'm just going to cancel it, but you kind of get the idea. It would go for a while. I could probably, have it run for a fewer number of steps or something like that. And then it would give us, a summary. And then the other one I wanted to show you is Smithery. So I'm not going to run this one. You could run it yourself. This all this code is going to be open source. It'll be a repo that you can clone and run. But for Smithery, it's similar. You don't sign in, which I think they did add a sign-in feature recently, but I'm not using it for the example here. Let me just open it in my browser. The same thing with Smithery here. We can kind of search through, pick all of the MCP servers that we want. And you would be able to kind of copy the server configuration from here and add it in here. So the example here is exactly the same. So like I said, I'm not going to run it. But just to give you an idea that you can use more than one registry. You can also combine them. So that's not something I have shown here, but like here we have, this is pulling from Smithery, but we could easily just take one of these, like the Composio one, and also add it to our MCP configuration. So that's kind of the nice thing about this MCP configuration class is you just add as many MCP servers as you want, and you don't need to change the rest of your code. The tools will just get connected automatically. Okay, so now that we've seen, this MCP configuration, how to connect it to the agent, and we've seen, registries and stuff. Let's look at the actual coding agent. So actually, sorry, before that, I want to show one quick thing. So the terminal UI, this is also going to be in the repo that I mentioned. We're not going to write the code for this because I think it's not super relevant, but I'm just going to show you real quick. It's just it's a while loop here that uses Node.js readline. So you can, type in your prompt. When you send it, it just sends the prompt to your agent, streams back the response. And then as we're streaming that response, we have all these different parts on the response type, right? Like a text delta, tool call, tool result, and so on. So this is what I was mentioning before. We're just logging out the tool call and logging out the tool result. Okay, so jumping over to the coder agent. Got a to-do file in the repo here. So, all right, here's what we're going to do. So, yeah, we're going to build a code agent that can build other Mastra agents. So that'll be interesting. And this agent is going to need the Mastra docs MCP, right? Because it needs to understand how to build Mastra agents. It's going to need a good system prompt, shell access, so it can run commands like, installing PNPM packages, scaffolding master projects, stuff like that. It needs file system access so it can read and write code files. Web search technically doesn't need that, but we're going to add it anyway just to show how easy it is to do that. Maybe it needs to check some docs on API that we're integrating or something like that. And then there's these two that I added. We're actually not going to do these today, but most of these coding agents, they index your code and they integrate with an LSP or tree sitter or something like that. So it can kind of understand how all your code is contextually related to other code. That's a bit too complicated for this, so we're going to skip it. But as you'll see, the coding agent is going to work without it. And human in the loop. So this would be, the ability to approve or deny the actions that it's taking. It can be a little bit risky to just give it full shell and file system access. I'm just going to take the risk for the demo, but human in the loop would be really good to add. And maybe we can show that in the next MCP workshop. But yeah, let's take a look. So the coding agent I have here, right now there's no servers at all. Just says that, it's a coding agent, helpful coding agent. We're going to use Claude because Claude is very, very good at writing code. And we have memory attached to it. That's pretty important for coding. It needs to know what it's doing. So let's just start it up and make sure that in this basic form, we can chat with it. So I'll ask it what Mastra is. Shouldn't know at this point. Yeah, it doesn't have any idea. What can you do? Probably nothing. Could probably tell us about code. So it's pretty smart, but yep. Okay. So quit out of that. So let's take a look here. So the first thing for the coding agent we said was the Mastra docs MCP. So let's install that. And I'm just going to copy a code snippet. All right, so probably I could get Cursor to do this. I don't have Cursor set up for this repo with the Mastra docs MCP, so we're just going to do it one code chunk at a time here. So that's really all that it takes, though, right? We just do pnpx or pnpm -y, same thing. Both of those are good. Now when I run it, that question we asked before, it should know now. What is Mastra? All right, so yeah, that's just adding this little snippet here. It now is able to call that tool, look at the Mastra docs, and it has a pretty good answer for us. So it's an open source TypeScript agent framework designed to help developers build AI applications. So 100% right. Okay, so that was done. What next? Good system prompt. So I'm gonna copy a snippet again. So I have this prompts file. Import it. I'm not going to show the first part of the prompt here, and the reason why is I actually copied the leaked cursor prompt. So I'm not going to show that to you guys. You can do whatever you want to do. All this prompt, all it's saying is like you're a coding agent, you have access to tools, do what the user says, don't show a bunch of code snippets, just make changes to code and so on. I'm going to add my own little bit onto that, which is not much. Make sure you check available documentation if you're not 100% sure. We're going to make sure this coding agent knows the directory that it's in. So I'm just going to put right in the system prompt the current working directory. And we're going to list out all the files in the current working directory. So I think I need another import for this as well. And again, this will be in the repo. So I'm not going to talk about this function, or I'm not going to show the function, but what this function does is it just recursively lists all the files in the current working directory. So it'll show all the folders, all the individual files, so it can immediately get a sense of what it's looking at. Okay, so at this point, we do have our good system prompt, but it's still not going to be able to do anything besides what we saw the first time. So let's move on to the next one before we test it again. So we're going to add shell access. So it's going to be able to run commands and so on. So I'm going to copy this in. Right up here. So I'll show that. So doing a similar kind of thing. PNPX, this is the name of the MCP server package. And we're just saying the allowed path that it can run commands in is the current working directory. I added this OpenAI key to it because later we'll need it when the agent is running its own agent. When it's doing that, that agent is going to need to make OpenAI calls. So, all right, now we've got that. Let's restart the terminal. And we'll just see what it can do now. So what do we got here? Maximum call specs on this. Yeah, I must have messed something up while I was doing this. What do we got? Oh, you know what? I think I was making some quick changes right before, and I must have changed something in this. We'll just do something quick and happy. And then we'll say the depth that it's getting the directory file list is greater than like, I don't know what, let's say it doesn't need that much. We'll say 3 if it's return. And hopefully that fixes it. Oh, this needs to be string. Okay, so that worked fine. All right, so it should have access to everything we just added. Let's send it a prompt. So check how much disk space I have. And it was able to run a shell command now. So using tool shell execute command, and then it got a response, and I have half my hard drive left. Okay, so we're getting closer to an agent that is able to work as a coding agent, but it still cannot change any files or anything. So the next thing we're going to do is give it that ability. And again, I'll copy a code snippet in. We're going to give it a text editor MCP server. So you can see this is at model context protocol / server file system. There's actually a bunch of reference MCP servers made by Anthropic and other folks who contribute to this repo. Their one actually works pretty good. I tried a couple different ones. All of them work decently well, but I ran into some bugs. This one I have not seen any bugs, which is really nice. But similar to the shell MCP, we're going to just tell it that it can read and write files in the current working directory. So looking at our to-do list, we've got our shell access. We're going to try file system access now. Start it up. And we can see a lot more tools. We have all these text editor tools. Excuse me. And just to test it, we'll say list the files in current working directory. Cool. Yeah, so it's seeing all the files for this MCP Workshop repo. That's good, but this is not a master project. So, well, it is a master project, but we don't want it working on itself. It might break itself. So let's jump over to the one that we scaffolded at the very beginning. And let's see. Oops. Sorry, the Zoom controls are over the bottom of my terminal here. Okay. We're in the right directory, and what I have is this alias MCP UI. All this does is it runs the terminal script from the workshop repo, but from somewhere else. So we're in that other project, and I should be able to just run MCP TUI, and we get the same terminal UI, but now we're in the other directory. So let's see, tell me about my agent. So, read all the files in source Mastra. It's reading the specific agents file. It sees there's a weather agent. It's going to look at the tool. See, it's kind of already able to understand a lot about this project. Let me just open this. Oh, you know what? Actually, I forgot. I have this open in cursor, so I'll jump over there to look at it. So what I'm going to do, I don't know if this agent network works. I haven't used agent network myself, so I'm just going to delete it real quick. That kind of getting back to the point that we would be at when we scaffolded a new project. Okay, we got the weather agent, has tools and memory. Okay, so let's tell it to add an eval to this agent. So add a Mastra eval to my weather agent. Okay. So one thing I'm noticing is that my agent is not actually using the Mastra documentation. Although it seems to understand, no, here, hold on. Let's quit this out for a second. We'll go back over here. So we have the doc server, so that should be working. However, obviously our coding agent is not as sophisticated as something like Cursor. So we're gonna just tell it in the system prompt, always check the Mastra docs before or editing or adding Mastra features to an agent. Okay, so we'll restart it and we'll try that again. Oops. Okay, just to be sure, what is Mastra? We'll ask it that first. Yeah, so it can definitely access the Mastra docs MCP. And once it's done, we'll try what we did before. So add an eval to my weather agent. So with this terminal UI, every time I restart it, it's actually creating a new memory thread. So it can't remember what we talked about the first time we asked it to do that. So that's why it's checking the directories and everything again. It's reading the files. Oh, you know what? It's actually seeing the eval that the first one added incorrectly. Oh, I probably shouldn't have stopped it because I was about to check the master docs. Okay, let me just delete it real quick so we can start from a clean slate. I think it actually would have worked if I hadn't stopped it, but let's just make sure.
And we have about 15 minutes left, Tyler. So just the
Oh,
heads
okay.
up where we're at.
All right, we'll do this one and then we're gonna have a guest demo real quick. So go back to the coding agent. We'll try this one more time. Add a Mastra eval to my weather agent. Okay, there we go. That's what we wanted to see. So it's checking the docs about evals to implement it properly. It's reading the evals docs, the overview. And looks like it's gonna check the agent weather or the weather agent code. And installing the evals package. So I think it might have worked. I think we've got an agent here that can write code, run shell scripts, and actually create other master agents. Let's actually go to cursor to see what it did. So the difference here with our agent is that it doesn't have access to see any of these linting errors. So in cursor, we saw that, with the agent network, it used an incorrect key and then it saw that, checked the docs again and fixed it. For us here, it doesn't have that capability. That's something we'd have to add in addition, but at least we can see that it was able to write code, read the docs, run shell scripts and so on. So I think we have a coding agent, not quite as good as Cursor. We need a few more features, but pretty close. So, I'm gonna call Daniel Liu from Netlify. Daniel, are you here? Daniel made a pretty cool MCP server. He used Mastra to kind of debug it and work on it.
Yeah,
Not
I'm
sure.
here.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Do you want to give us a quick demo?
Yeah, for sure. And thank you. Yeah, so I actually first heard about MCP servers through your blog, Tyler. Then I thought it was like very interesting, and we started looking more into it. And so right now uh, we're kind of exploring what MCP servers unlocks. So I guess. I guess a little background to understand like what this MCP server that I wrote, and so I guess like a lot of the focus so far has been on like the agent side of things, like how do you create an agent to like consume MCP server. So I just wanted to show like the other side of things, so like creating an MCP server that can be used in Mastra. So what this MCP server is doing essentially, just starting up a package called Content Engine. It's basically just a data syncing framework powered by connectors and plugins. And so it's just pulling in data from multiple sources into a single data store, giving me a unified GraphQL API, starting up a server, uh, to aid with local development. And then the interesting part, starting up an MCP server to give agents an interface to interact with the data and the schema in this data store. So this is just set up for the data store itself. Um, so I'm using a package Fast MCP. It's pretty easy to use. The implementation was incredibly straightforward. This didn't take long at all to get this up and running. So that it exposes this add tool function here. So I have I'm just going to show these two tools that I wrote here. One is just how to get the schema for the GraphQL API, and the other one's how to execute it. And so uh, using this from so I started to use Claude first to kind of like test this out. It was kind of frustrating, and so I ended up actually switching over to Mastra to use. And like one of this is such a small thing. Let me just open up the agent here. Uh, where is it? Yeah, this was such a small thing that just made development so much easier. So when I was trying to configure the server in Claude, it just kind of it doesn't it's the way that you provide it is just through like unstructured JSON schema. And so it was kind of like hard to figure out like how do you actually configure this? And because it's so new, documentation is kind of sparse and examples are sparse. But just having like type safety here is such a huge thing for that doesn't exist. Even if you go into like the cursor settings for MCP here. So if I edit this, like this is just there's no like type safety here. So like when I was trying to use Claude, it just kept adding it as endpoint, and I couldn't figure out like why my MCP server wasn't working. And so
Yeah,
that's
I
just
had a
kind
lot
of
of trouble with this too when I was first using MCP, like originally.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it just kept hallucinating new properties to add here, and I just had no idea what like actual properties existed. And to go back to my MCP server, so I have it running. I have my MCP server running here, and then I have a Next.js site running here. And so for the sake of time, I don't think I'm going to walk through like necessarily create. So what I basically did was take a screenshot of this, paste it into Cursor and just say, hey, use my GraphQL API and give me a page that consumes all of this. And so if I go into my agent here, so it created all of this. I'll delete this products just to quickly show if this. So what products do I have available? What product types? And so this is something that I was running into before. It seems to stall sometimes. Do you have access to my MCP server? What tools are available?
So we're almost out of times. I guess let's just see if maybe give it that prompt one more time, and then I think we'll have to jump over to quick Q&A.
But yeah. But yeah, I guess like essentially what I just want, yeah, okay. So it's finally calling the tool. So it's pulling up my schema and it'll be able to, I'm not going to show it creating components because that'll take a little bit of time, but basically just turning like any GraphQL API into something that an agent can work with easily.
Yes, yeah, that's pretty cool. I think that's the power of MCP is, just having these essentially plugins that you can install anywhere. Like Daniel installed it in Mastra and in Cursor. And as we saw, you can do the same with like the Mastra Docs MCP. So yeah, it's pretty cool. There's a lot of power in how it works.
And with that, we're going to start to wrap up. So we can talk a little bit about the future of MCP. We'll send these slides. So we have some links here that talk about, like a well-known MCP directory. There's a GitHub discussion, the blog post that we wrote on why we're all in on MCP. We have some ideas on the future there. We talk about, Anthropic's, thinking of an MCP server registry and this idea around stateless MCP servers. And before we try to answer a few questions live, some links, please go to our GitHub and give us a star if you haven't already. Join our Discord if you want to chat about this stuff after this. All of the team, we're in and out of Discord all the time. And then follow me and Tyler on Twitter, connect with us on LinkedIn. And if you do want to join the Mastra Cloud Beta, we're slowly rolling out access to our cloud product. Go to the website and click on request or get access, drop your email in, and you will eventually get access to it. We're slowly rolling it out. And with that, is there any questions that we want to answer? Okay. There's questions. So it looks like Abby, thanks for jumping in and helping out with all these questions.
We're not doing Python ports on anything. Just letting you guys know, straight up.
Yeah, no plans
Sorry
on
about
that.
that. No Python.
I guess the question, what about other MCP feature support? Is it planned? Prompts, server push messages, etc. Yes. So we're going to support more of the MCP features that we don't today. And then when some of these new RFCs make it into MCP, like the well-known directory and so on, we'll also support those. The blog post that Shane mentioned has some code snippets on how we think we want to use some of these features when they come out. One thing that we want to do is allow you to point at a registry from that MCP configuration class, and then just have TypeScript autocomplete right in your IDE for all the different servers that you can install. So you'll be able to just start typing something, and then it'll autocomplete. You press whatever your IDE like tab or whatever it is to autocomplete. You'll see everything, and then you'll see all the required configuration for each server and so on.
There's a
VS
question.
Code. Oh yeah, go ahead.
There's a question about setting up master server to use in Visual Studio Code, if that's possible.
I haven't done it myself. As long as it supports MCP servers, you should be able to install it in literally any IDE or client that can install an MCP will work with it. And we have a docs page, so I could show that real quick actually. Go. You just go to the homepage, click on docs, and then in the top part of the sidebar here, there's using with cursor / windsurf, but we have a manual installation section that just shows the snippet that you need to put into your MCP client. So you would use that.
Awesome. Well, we do have, I think most of them have been answered now. Thanks for everyone on the team jumping in. And with that, just as we all said, or as we said before, the demo, this recording, the slides, they'll all be sent out in an email that you registered with. So expect that in a few hours here, it'll come out and you'll have access to everything we did today. The GitHub repo will be there, so you can download the code, play with it, and see if you can, if you're comfortable giving your agent access to your shell directly or not. Thank you everyone for attending. Tyler, thanks for showing all these code examples and running through this. Daniel, thanks for the guest demo. And yeah, it was good seeing you all. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks everyone.
If we
Really
didn't
good to see
get to
y'all.
your questions, go to Discord.
Yes, please come to Discord with your questions if we didn't answer it, and we will do our best to answer them there. See you all.
Yeah.
If you're
If
not in
whenever-
Discord, go to master.ai. You can join it from the homepage.
Yeah, it's in the footer of the homepage, or if you go to the docs, it's in the header of the docs as well. So we'll see you all there. Thanks, everybody.
See you later.